Center's Steve Williams.
Today, clouds and sun, thunderstorms. Some of those could bring flash flooding. High today, 89. A severe thunderstorm this evening. Again, flash flooding possible, low 73. Clouds and sun, shower and thunderstorm tomorrow, and the high 84. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
Warming up 78 degrees at O'Hare and along Chicago's Great Lakefront. Your next news update is at 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Papa Nicholas Coffee. Papa Nicholas, great coffee, period.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So this is a fun read. How to Become a Federal Criminal, an illustrated handbook for the aspiring offender.
Now, is this Illinois politics?
Right. Well, that's one way to become a federal criminal is hold office in Illinois. Ultimately, you'll get there.
Possibly the governor's mansion.
Some get there more quickly than others. This reminds me of a book from Harvey Silvergate from a few years back, 3 Felonies a Day. Because of the Byzantine web of federal laws, most Americans commit 3 felonies a day. It was essentially the premise of the book. And he goes through the Silvergate, all these arcane laws and so on and so forth. So I wonder if this is something akin to that, the things that you don't know are illegal that are illegal, and perhaps even things that would be enjoyable that are illegal. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by the author, Mike Chase. He's a white-collar criminal defense attorney and a legal humorist behind At Crime a Day. And the book, again, How to Become a Federal Criminal, an illustrated handbook for the aspiring offender. Mike, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So is this sort of a 3 felonies a day kind of thing?
Well, Harvey touched on some issues about his thesis is that every American wakes up in the morning and probably commits 3 felonies every day without knowing it.
Right.
And that's largely because of vague laws. And I said, well, that's a big, thick book, and we don't have one with pictures in it that shows you how to go out and commit some of the more ludicrous federal crimes. And everybody's bookshelf needs one of those, I think.
How to? Sure, of course. Well, give us some examples of I don't want to do a lot of work or a lot of planning, so give me some easy federal crimes to commit.
Well, some of them can just come up in the spur of the moment. Say you're walking around a national park and a horse walks by you and you just, I don't know, there's just something about the horse you don't like and you decide to flip him the bird or something. Making an unreasonable gesture to a passing horse on public land is a federal crime.
Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a good one to do, but the problem here is that the regulators haven't given us much definition on what an unreasonable gesture is, so you might have to try a few, and then also make sure that the horse is a passing horse, because if it's just standing still, you're still on the right side of the law.
Now, and how much time can I get 3 squares in lodging if I make what the courts determined was an unreasonable gesture to a passing horse?
Yeah, unfortunately for that, you're only going to get a 6-month stay, but it is probably per instance. So if there's a whole bunch of horses and you make a whole bunch of unreasonable gestures, you can ratchet that.
Sure, serve consecutive sentences.
Okay, so you can't flip off a horse, literally and figuratively. You don't want to. But what other stupid laws are out there?
Well, there's lots of stuff involving food. Now, some of them may seem stupid, like you can't sell grated cream cheese. That I'm not sure that you can even grate cream cheese, so maybe that's not a big deal. But some of them are just a little unsettling about what might be let into your food. So you can't sell pork from a pig that has a pronounced sexual odor. But if the pig has something less than a pronounced sexual odor, you can sell that. So who knows?
You really have to have a discerning palate to pick up that scent, I presume.
Yeah, it's like a sommelier of pig odor. Yeah.
This is, it's interesting. I looked at your book on Amazon and just some of the reviews and stuff. And I know some politicians give this book rave reviews like Orrin Hatch. And I just want to, well, if you think this is such a great book and it's so hilarious and you're a lawmaker, maybe you should do something about these ridiculous federal laws. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Orrin Hatch, I think he retired. So maybe he retired because I don't know, he read my book and he said, forget it, it's a lost cause. But yeah, there are some folks in Congress that probably should pay a little attention to this. I think, unfortunately, with the 2020 Democratic primary upon us, I'm not sure anybody's going to win any political victories by going in there and saying, hey, look, we need to put an end to the ban on unreasonable gestures made to horses.
Yeah.
And all these cheese crimes have got to go. I'm not sure that that's how you're going to win in 2020.
Well, I mean, look, you do have a candidate, Andrew Yang, who's come out against circumcision. So, I mean, we're pretty far afield in terms of the issues being tackled in this race so far. But perhaps you're right.
And then you mentioned, too, in your book that if you clog a toilet in a national forest, you could get 6 months in jail? Or is
That's
it
right.
3 months?
The problem with that one is that the regulators actually have gone out of their way to specify that lack of intent is not a defense to that offense. So you don't have to intentionally clog a toilet in a national forest. If you do it accidentally, I'll let you use your imagination. It's early in the morning.
Now, yeah. Now, and these
And
these
how
are
long is that?
these are like
well, how is that long has that law been on the books? I mean, that is just.
Yeah, that one has probably been on the books for a couple of decades, and it's not a lot of these. You'd be shocked. I mean, the ban on leaving the country with too many nickels. That sounds probably like a very old law, but it dates back to about 2005. So some of these laws are getting put on the books quietly and without us even knowing it. And yeah, if you leave the country with more than $25 worth of nickels for the last 10 years, that's been a crime.
and what happens there? What's the penalty?
That
Death by
is a much
stoning.
more
The ring.
right, firing squad. No, that's a much more stiff penalty. That's up to 5 years in federal
5
prison.
years in prison. What are you in for? $26 in nickels. I tried to
That's
get
right.
take through O'Hare.
Well, then, what about writing a letter to a pirate?
Oh yeah, so that's probably one of the oldest crimes on the books, on the federal books. I
Stop
mean,
doing
the
that.
Constitution had just 3 crimes in it. It said treason, counterfeiting, and being a pirate. And the first Congress said, all right,
Shiver me timbers.
interacting with any pirate, so entertaining a pirate, I don't know if that's dancing for them or what, but writing a letter to a pirate, corresponding, or even consulting with a pirate. So, if you just want some advice from a pirate, that's a federal crime too, and that's been on the books since the country's founding.
Well, I mean, did have that little row with the Barbary pirates during Jefferson's presidency, but yeah, maybe
sure.
maybe we're a little bit beyond that. Now this you have to be like an officially sanctioned pirate. It can't be like somebody at an amusement park who's dressed up as a pirate, or is that
Right, I think you
unclear?
got to be a member of the Pirates Guild.
Yeah, right. You have to have a card carrying. So, with respect to all these, is this just a case where so many of these laws, extreme cases make bad law, and that's essentially what you have, some reaction to some one-off event, and so let's just make a law to prescribe it, or have there actually been multiple prosecutions under any of these ridiculous laws?
It's a combination of things. So on the one hand, you have, our Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 says Congress is supposed to write the law, right? They're the lawmaking branch of government. But over the years, they've sort of given that power away to agency bureaucrats in the executive branch. And so Congress, in its infinite laziness, has written these statutes that basically don't say much. They just say, hey, look, any violation of any regulation promulgated by this agency is a federal crime. And so the agencies in the background are just going around regulating conduct. They're not planning to make crimes. But it's that combination of two branches of government not paying attention to one another that they create potentially, some scholars have estimated as many as 300,000 federal crimes on the books. And so, yeah, some of them may be reactive. Some of them may actually be well-intentioned. We want, there to be enough cherries in our fruit cocktail when we buy it at the store. But the problem is that they shouldn't be making crimes accidentally. And when you go to your question about whether there have been prosecutions, there certainly have been. Going back to our founding, early on in the country, a couple of margarine dealers were sent to prison for selling improperly packaged margarine. And even more recently, you had Bobby Unser, who was prosecuted for accidentally snowmobiling on a little bit of federal land during a blizzard. And so, yeah, there are prosecutions under lots of these laws, but the big problem is that they shouldn't be making them accidentally.
Well, right. If the law is unknowable, then you don't have the rule of law.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
exactly right.
So how did you, I find all of this very fascinating. How did you become a self-taught expert in these, outrageous offenses.
Are you a descendant of the I can't believe it's not butter people who were imprisoned?
I'm not. I can't comment on whether I've got a bone to pick with the dairy lobby. My day-to-day practices. Look, I represent folks that are accused of crimes. I've been doing that for a while now. But I read this report that said that the Department of Justice in the 80s had tried to count every federal crime on the books, and after 2 years they gave up because they couldn't do it. And I said, that is crazy. It should be knowable. Isn't there a place you can go sit down and read the criminal code? And so I said, all right, look, I'm going to start this Twitter feed. And for the last 5 years, without missing a single day, every single day, and I mean every day, the day my son was born in the hospital, I was tweeting a federal crime every single day, mostly ridiculous stuff, just to illustrate this point.